From the Statue of Liberty, we head on over to Ellis Island, where life in America started for millions of immigrants. For decades, immigrants to New York came through Castle Garden, an old fort built to defend New York Harbor during the War of 1812 and is now known as Castle Point, where ferry tickets are sold to visit the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. But by 1890, the antiquated facility had been overwhelmed by the tidal wave of new immigrants pouring in from Eastern and Southern Europe, and work began on a new immigrant station far out in the harbor on an abandoned ammunition dump called Ellis Island.
You may also remember the 2005 romantic comedy film Hitch, with Will Smith, Eva Mendes, and Kevin James, that shows an emotional scene here at Ellis Island.
So, Ellis Island.
I have to admit, I have lived in New York my whole life and I've never been here.
I actually had a relative come through here.
No, I was just thinking that you can't really know where you're going until you know where you've been.
Opened in 1892, then rebuilt in 1900 after a fire, the massive complex of brick, stone, and steel was a city unto itself. With 14 acres consisting of 34 buildings including its own power station, a 125-bed hospital, police and fire departments, and laundries, dormitories, and kitchens. The federal immigration station on Ellis Island processed nearly 3/4 of all immigrants entering the country in the first quarter of the 20th century. Built to accommodate 500,000 people a year, it would soon be handling twice that number. Year by year, the number of arrivals kept rising, 8,000 a day, then 10,000. By the spring of 1907, more than 11,000 men, women, and children were passing through in a single day.
For the immigrants themselves, the arrival in New York was both an ending and a beginning, the midway point in a voyage of transformation that had begun thousands of miles away. In the years to come, the experience of these newcomers would be woven into the myth of America, and no one would ever forget the day they arrived. It was, as one man said, like a second birth. Most of them had heard the same thing. There was freedom and opportunity in America for anyone willing to work, and the place with the most jobs was the sprawling, unfathomably large port city of New York.
The trip across the Atlantic Ocean for early immigrants from Germany and Ireland who came over in the 1840s aboard sailing ships often took many weeks. But by the time Ellis Island was opened, the voyage took what was still a miserable 8 to 14 days at sea. Packed in like cattle, in poorly ventilated steerage compartments at the bottom of huge iron-hulled ships, immigrants were often moved to tears simply by the magnificence of the vast and tranquil harbor, and by the extraordinary sight of a giant woman, her arms stretched 30 stories high, bearing a torch of welcome. An immigrant named Sarah Archer recalled,
"About 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, we all got up. The whole boat bent toward her because everybody went out. Everybody. She was beautiful, with the sunshine so bright and so big. Everybody was crying. The captain came and said, 'Please, everybody, we should move a little bit to the center.' But nobody would move."
Once past Liberty Island, however, anticipation turned to unease as the domes and minarets of Ellis Island loomed into view. One Italian immigrant recalled,
"The thrill was unbelievable, but always there's the fear, because you have to go to this island, Ellis Island, and I heard all kinds of things that they would tell you on the boat. My God," I said, "I hope they're not going to send me back."
Though most immigrants passed through the inspection process in 3 to 5 hours, approximately 1 in 5 was detained for further examination. After the harrowing medical examination, immigrants were directed here to the registry room for a final inspection, where they waited hours for their name to be called.
In the end, less than 2% of the more than 12 million immigrants who passed through Ellis Island were denied entry into the United States. Following signs marked West and New England, most quickly dispersed to distant towns and cities across the country.
But for 1 in 4 of the new arrivals, the final destination was a 15-minute ferry ride away on an island many of them would never leave again. On board the ferry, approaching Battery Park, they stood in wonder at the last and most extravagant sight of all, the gleaming skyline of New York. A vision that seemed to confirm everything they hoped the new world would be.
One Italian immigrant recalled, "Everybody was looking at Manhattan, and I must admit, that sight I don't think I will ever forget. I thought I was in heaven." Another agreed, "My God, was this a city on earth or a city in heaven?"
My favorite place on Ellis Island is an area that came to be known as the Kissing Post. It was located down at the bottom of these very stairs. This staircase also has a nickname. It became known as the Stairs of Separation and is where many of the heartbreaking stories you'll hear about Ellis Island took place. The staircase is divided into 3 sections. The right-hand side led to the railroad ticket office, the left-hand side to the New York ferry, but the middle staircase was for those immigrants who didn't pass the inspection and were either detained or sent back home. So this is the exact spot where some family members, after a long journey far away from home, filled with hope, after being denied entry to the United States, said their final goodbyes. Imagine leaving your home and all your belongings behind for the hope and chance for a new and better life, just to have one of your family members not make it through. The heartbreak that took place here at this very spot is unimaginable. But on the flip side, at the bottom of these very stairs was where arriving immigrants were reunited with loved ones and family members who had come before them and were anxiously awaiting their arrival. How many places exist in the world that share the opposites of such extreme emotion? On the one hand, you have the agony and despair of separation from a loved one you will most likely never see again, and on the other, the intense joy and happiness of being reunited with those you love after a long period of doubt and hope that they will make it through.
One of the most interesting discoveries over the years at Ellis Island has been the graffiti left behind by arriving immigrants, each revealing bits of their own stories and personal journeys. Some were just names, dates, and their village of origin. Others offered a more personal glimpse into the individual, such as one scribbled in Chinese on the marble wall in a men's room that said, "Thinking of home brings tears." Another, "When I have the opportunity to see my father, brothers, wife, and children, I will be overjoyed and tell them about my Western journey." There are scrawls in Arabic, Armenian, Chinese, French, German, Hebrew, Hungarian, Polish, Greek, Italian, Russian, and Serbo-Croatian, truly giving us a look into the past and reminding us again of those that have come before us.